Good afternoon, gentlemen. This is CS MGTOW and MGTOW Indian. He's running a great new channel, and today we're going to be speaking about the 498A laws in India. These are very, very important laws. And so what I'm going to do is just hand things over to MGTOW Indian. Would you, just care to, give our, just the guys out there just a bit of background, how long you've been involved within, content production, and how you found MGTOW?
Yep. Well, basically, I found MGTOW sometime in September last year.
Okay.
It was basically through Karen Strawn, which I'm guessing a lot of people know.
For sure.
I didn't find MGTOW through her, but well, the journey was actually through her. And I found Stardust and Barbarossa as well, and Sandman. I started producing content basically sometime during December because I realized that there wasn't a single MGTOW channel that was running in India. There was one, but he wasn't producing too much content. So I thought, what, might as well start it. And I wasn't too good with any of the video editing softwares or the audio editing softwares. I had to learn quite a bit of shit to get into it. But I was like, what, might as well. People need to hear what's happening in India as well.
For sure. And I guess just before we start, I think it's important to say this, that I guess living in the Western world, we assume that the misinjury we face on a day-to-day is bad, but in India, there are a number of laws, and just outside of the laws, there are also lots and lots of just customs which make for an incredible level of misinjury, the kind of misinjury that most men in the world will simply never experience. So for example, I guess one distinction I can make immediately is, which I've seen quite often, let's say in the UK, a false rape accusation is an incredibly, terrifying experience, and it ruins lives. In India, there's a likelihood the person is simply murdered, by the mob before the trial. And I mean, would you just care to kind of shed light on the kind of legal and social customs which have made misinjury so integrated into the fabric of life over there?
Sure. The thing is, women are so well protected here, or at least that's what the consensus is. Everybody, no matter what, is supposed to protect a woman, even if that means you losing your life. Mm-hmm. And when a woman actually says that she has been raped, there is no second thought. And I think that was pretty obvious in the case that happened in Meghalaya. I'm guessing a lot of you might have actually heard about it from Barbarossa's video. I think he speaks about misinjury in India, where the man was actually accused of rape by a woman, and he was sent to jail. There was a mob that basically ran across the jail, pulled the man out, stripped him naked, and beat him to death, and paraded him around at the same time.
Wow.
And a month later, after the police investigation was conducted, it was found out that she was actually blackmailing him for money, and it was just an extortion racket.
Wow. Is this extortion racket quite a common thing, or was that just a particularly nefarious situation?
No, it's not a one-time thing. There have been honey traps that have been caught. I think there were two in January, one in February, where what they do is one of the women, what they do is they get in touch with a man, basically trap him, have sex, and when that sex is done, she gets her friends to barge into the room and basically accuse him of rape, and they say that if you don't give us this much amount of money, we're going to call the cops right away, and she's going to testify that she and the rest of the friends would testify that he had raped her. And a lot of men have actually gotten swindled this way. The thing is, we wouldn't hear about them unless they went and reported to the cops. And the gangs, they consist of mostly even men as well. It's not just women. It's maybe 2 men, 3 women, and they're the ones who actually just perform this whole racket around.
Wow. And I assume, again, I'm just going to go out on a limb and make an assumption that if a man is caught up in one of these and he happens to go to the police, the police won't be particularly sympathetic towards him.
No way in hell. You got to understand, forget the police, the whole public itself. We've got a bunch of white knights here. Uh, and the police, once they've heard that it's a rape complaint, no mercy. Basically, it's a direct arrest without any sort of evidence that has to be produced. The verbal complaint is enough to file an FIR and first incidence report, that is, and that's actually taken as evidence into the court as well.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So the complaint itself is evidence.
Yes, it is. The verbal complaint itself is the evidence, and it's set the same way in law as well.
Wow, that's incredible, and possibly one of the few areas of the legal system where the actual complaint, minus any corroborating evidence, forms the basis of the evidence against the accuser that's then used to convict the accuser. It's basically, the word of the accuser then forms, the majority of the evidence of the prosecution. That's
it forms the foundation of the case. It forms the foundation of the case itself.
For example, that's outrageous.
Yeah, for example, there was a judge. It was a court hearing that I actually read the judgment, and the judge stated she'd actually said that it was a false complaint, and she apologized. And judge stated that now, when we base a case of a pure verbal complaint, and when it's against a man and a woman, you cannot do such thing because it basically puts an innocent man in jail. The judge himself stated that he would take just the verbal complaint into consideration when sending the man or convicting the man to go to prison.
Whoa. That's absolutely insane. And I guess one of the things that I've always been very, very fascinated about is a particular law that's on the books in the Indian Penal Code, which is the 498A law. And just for individuals who aren't familiar with this particular law, it was passed by the Indian Parliament in 1983. It's a criminal law, so it's not a civil law. It is a criminal law. So an individual found guilty of violating this law is subject to a very, very severe legal penalty. Would you care to explain the law?
Sure, I'll go ahead. Now, what it states is that it was actually passed in 1983 to curb dowry harassment.
Yes.
I think in 1981 there was a woman who was murdered because she didn't pay enough dowry, and they basically that was the foundation for this law being passed in the first place. And it states that any willful conduct which is of such a nature to drive a woman to commit suicide or to cause grave injury to her life or health, whether mental or physical, that actually constitutes dowry harassment, and it comes under the 498A law. Now, this is mostly to do with coercing her with to pay the dowry or shift property into the husband's name, and any kind of cruelty that deals with that. But what happened later is that in 2005, when the domestic violence law was passed, which is actually a civil law, what happened is cruelty actually they were inextricably linked together. So when the cruelty term is actually taken into context from the 498A law, it directly links to the domestic violence law, which is a hoot and a half, to be honest, because you not paying for her shit is basically domestic violence, and it comes under 498A. If she makes money and you cannot force her to actually give that money towards the family, that's economic abuse, which again comes under 498A. You can't force her to not work or to go to work. You have no control over anything that she does, and at the same time, she has complete control over your your finances. If there's anything that you don't pay on time, you can be implicated under 498A, which is directly linked to the domestic violence law.
For sure. In fact, I've seen applications of the law in India where the wife will want something, and maybe the groom is simply unable to provide it, and she will then use this law to maybe I want a new motor vehicle. Look, honey, I don't have the money, and she'll then use this law to basically have him arrested and then just take all of his assets.
Forget the cars or forget the motor vehicles. Even if the woman is working and let's say she makes 50,000 rupees a month, and the guy makes probably 30,000 rupees a month, and when she's working, she says that she doesn't want to cook. So she wants to eat out every day. Now the man has to pay for every single meal that she eats out
Whoa,
and that he eats out. Otherwise, it's basically economical abuse.
that's insane. I guess just to give everybody a bit of background here
Yep.
on the reason why dowries were so important. Because I mean, I guess the logic, which to my mind makes a lot of sense, is this: the bride will be living in the groom's house, so she's marrying the groom. She'll be living in his home and enjoying all of the facilities, probably for about 60 years. She'll be completely dependent on his income, which means, of course, he has a responsibility to go out and work and get money in. I mean, it's not a system. I'm not a traditionalist, so I'm thankful that I don't have to live under such a system. But that was, yeah, but that was the reason why the dowry was there. So it was a way of her family compensating the man for the economic activity that he was going to have to overproduce to essentially keep her alive for the rest of her life. The situation. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just go ahead. You finish and I'll continue after that.
Oh no, but please go ahead. I finished.
Okay. The thing was, dowry wasn't actually the origins of dowry isn't such. This particular system of dowry came in only after the British actually entered India.
Oh, I see.
Uh,
Okay.
Before that, dowry, or we call it stridhan in Hindi, uh, that was actually money sent with the woman for her and for no one else.
I see. Okay.
It was
Wow.
something of an emergency for her to use in case her husband died, passed away, or left her.
Hmm.
That was what the dowry was actually for. But once the British came, I think it was in the 1780s, during the permanent settlement of Bengal. I think it was Lord Cornwallis that actually came in through that. And Indians didn't have the whole idea of property rights back then.
Okay.
So once the property rights came in, I think people started getting greedy, and it changed and transformed into the dowry system that we know of now.
I see. I see. And I guess I would love to find out. I mean, under the original system where it was emergency money for the woman, in case some accident befell her husband, what was the social contract like between men and women at that time? I mean, were women economically active in their own way, or was it full dependency on the provider husband?
Um, I'm not completely sure about it, but from what I have read and what I've actually heard from a lot of people, it was completely, actually, pretty much full economic dependence on the husband.
Okay.
Uh, India was mainly an agricultural country, to be honest.
Okay.
So it was a lot of farmers. Uh, yes, you got a few. It was basically kings ruling the place, and mm, the families were given particular amount of land where they could farm. And it's not that the women did not help out; they did, but they did the lighter chores.
I see. Okay. Okay.
The men had to do the harder ones, and well, that's pretty obvious, I guess. And women did the lighter chores, and it was kind of, yeah, fairly not complete, but to a certain extent, there was a lot of economic dependence on the husband.
Hmm. And I guess, I would love to kind of get your take on the individuals who've challenged the constitutionality of the 498A laws to say, hold on, it violates due process. It doesn't respect the presumption of innocence. And, is the law, I mean, can it be considered constitutional in its current form?
When you look at first you've got to look at two different articles of the Constitution. One is obviously to the right to freedom, that is presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and the other one is equality. Now, they've done a neat little trick when it comes to the article for equality. First, they state, I think it's Article 15. It states clearly that there should be no discrimination based on gender, race, or religion. But under that article, under the same article, I think it's 15 Part 3, they've stated that this particular article does not stop the government from creating special laws that can protect women and children.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So any kind of affirmative action can be had for women.
I see. I see. Okay. Well, I've seen a number, and this isn't out of the ordinary, a number of cases where not only will they, arrest the husband, but even family members of the man
Oh yes, the case can be filed against every single person in the family, even if they're not actually living in that house.
It gives women a tremendous amount of power. I guess my question is, why do men still marry? I mean, such a law is so open to abuse. Not even open, I mean, it is abused on a daily basis against rich and poor alike. Why do men still go down the path to marry when quite literally the woman can take everything from him and have his entire family arrested on a whim?
Well, for one, I don't think a lot of men are actually aware that this law exists until it comes and hits them in the face. Uh, for example, I didn't know this law exists. It's been around since 1983, and I got to know about it in 2012 or 2013.
Hmm,
So the thing is about Indians, we're not really well aware of our laws. To
I
be honest, I'm not
see.
kidding.
I
I didn't know
see.
about the rape laws until I actually looked into it. So it's and another part of it is the whole tradition or the Indian culture is built around family and the marriage system as well.
Hmm,
So a man staying alone or staying as a bachelor, like what I'm doing right now, is basically it's fairly impossible to do in India.
hmm,
You've got relatives pestering you, you've got your parents pestering you, and you've even got your family friends pestering you. Uh, and then there are other social factors as well. When it comes
hmm.
down to it, the whole thing is that it's marriage. You've got to do it. It's
I
not an
see.
option that you have. It's not an option. It's the only way.
I see.
That's how it is
On
in India.
on the issue of the police also arresting the families. So again, just to, and please do correct me if I'm wrong here.
Yeah, sure.
The wife is able to file the 498A not just against the husband, but against his entire family on the pretext that his entire family were trying to force her to, to pay the dowry. So that they arrest the entire family. So are there any steps that an individual can do, can take so that, his parents simply aren't arrested on the whim of his wife? Is there anything whatsoever? Or is it like once you're married, that's it?
None,
You're not,
none. There are absolutely no steps you can take.
wow. Not even legally disowning one's parents or having the parents legally disown the son in some way.
No, nothing, because once she's actually put it in the case, in the statement, there is no escape.
I see. I see. And I mean, how have men and women responded to this now?
Well, we all know gynocentrism, basically a law that is there to protect women. Nobody would even take a second look until it hits them in the face.
Hmm.
So it was well accepted at first because it was supposed to, stop men and their families from abusing the women.
Hmm.
So when it actually was passed, it was well received. But over the past few years, there's been so much misuse. I think the conviction rate is only 13%.
Yeah.
That was in 2014. It's basically the lowest percentage in all the IPC crimes, the Indian Penal Code crimes, that is.
Okay.
Um, Men have started realizing now, and we've got, I think, two different groups of basically men's rights activists fighting these laws to scrap it. But what the Supreme Court stated itself is that it does not matter even if it's being misused. You cannot take out a law because it's being misused.
Hmm.
And uh, they are also trying to make it so that a misuse clause is added into the law itself.
Hmm.
But again, that is being well fought by the feminists, and you have no idea how much power they have here.
Yes, I mean, the offense itself, it's a violation of the 498A Act. It's non-bailable. So once an individual's in jail, as far as I understand, there's no bail. So you can't be released. Once the accusation is made, you will be arrested, you will go to jail. Also, there's a presumption of guilt. It's not the presumption of innocence, and
No,
it's
no, yeah. it is not a presumption of innocence. Obviously, when you're being arrested for something, it is obviously the presumption of guilt. And yes, it is non-bailable, but the only person who has the power to give you bail is the magistrate. And then it kind of depends on the word of the woman again, which we all know where it goes.
Absolutely. So if she says, "Look, I fear for my life," or "I fear for my safety," then it's likely that
He will stay in jail.
he'll stay in jail. That's absolutely incredible. Again, I can only hope that more men find out about the existence of this law, and just hope, look, just take steps to protect themselves, which I guess the only real step to protect oneself is simply not to marry, and possibly to even go further and simply not to have sex, because individual can set you up and say, "Look, I'm going to say you raped me because you had sex with me." Then even having sex is very, very challenging. I guess what I would also love to ask you, and please don't feel obligated to answer this question. Is there social acceptance of, let's say, visiting a prostitute, or is that just an absolute no-no? So can a guy get a sexual release?
No, it's an absolute no-no. It's illegal in the first place.
Oh wow!
And
okay.
yeah, it's completely illegal in India, and yes, even there are places where red light districts, but it's an absolute no-no. Second thing, you're risking your life going there, man. You have no idea what infections the women have.
I see. And what I would also love to, I guess, kind of get your take on is the potential for the MGTOW phenomenon in India. Do you think it's really going to take off? Or is the pressure, the social pressure to marry, is that a huge impediment? Where do you think MGTOW is going to go in India?
I think with the way 498 is being used, and the awareness has actually increased a little bit compared to what it was probably 5 years back. And there are a few men who are going their own way. But I think the family pressure and blackmail is a bit too much for them to handle. I don't see it taking off, but there is one point where it might take off, because they're trying to bring marital rape law into practice. Basically, right now in the rape laws, there is an exception that if the woman you had sex with was your wife, it's not called rape. That does not mean that there is no punishment for it. It still comes under domestic violence and 498A, sexual assault. So once the marital rape comes into play, I can guarantee you that MGTOWs are going to grow extremely fast in India. And I think it will get passed. I'm absolutely sure that it will get passed.
For sure. I guess it's one of those things, once, one guy knows, he tells his friends, watch a couple of videos, then, hey, a couple more people know, and people realize what's going on. I guess I find it very, very comforting that in my home country of Nigeria, that there are more and more MGTOW men. We don't have quite the, for example, we don't have, as far as I'm aware of, we don't have a law quite as bad as the 498A. But then again, this law does seem to be unique in the world.
I don't think any country has such a law.
Absolutely. In the ability just for an individual to point a finger at someone and simply have that person jailed. That I think is, we haven't seen that level of power handed to to the ordinary citizen, possibly since the days of the Maoist denunciations in China, or it's really incredible that a citizen can be handed that level of coercive power against other individuals prior to a conviction. That you can point a finger.
It was actually fairly similar to the during slavery, when white women used to accuse black men of rape.
Absolutely, and pretty much that guy would lose his life as a result. Absolutely, it's now, really incredible.
Yeah, the other thing about 498 is it's actually not about the conviction. The women don't usually care about the conviction. What they care about is dragging this man through the court and dragging his family through the court.
For sure, I guess it's an extortion racket.
Yes,
even
now. just today there was a sentence that came out. It was about Karishma Kapoor. She's an actress in Bollywood, and she was going through a divorce with her husband. And first, apparently, they had actually reached a particular consensus, and they said, "Okay, fine, we'll split this, split that." But then she wanted more money, so she filed a 498A on the husband and his folks. And it came out today that basically she'll get 10 lakhs. She got custody of the kids. She'll get 10 lakhs every month, and he had to uh, give his father's house in Mumbai and transfer it to her name.
Whoa, that's
Yeah,
insane.
it just came out today.
That's absolutely insane. And again, to men in India listening to this discussion, please do not get married. It is an absolutely ruinous situation. If it were only the money, because I guess on one level you can make money back, but it's the men who then commit suicide. It's the men who are then beaten to death by an angry mob. Dragged from the safety of a police station and simply murdered in the street. The consequences of an upset woman over there is just absolutely lethal to men. So I do hope men will go out of their way now just to avoid marriage. Yeah, absolutely. And would you kind of? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'd have to say, I've been actually on my channel. I've been actually telling them to avoid girlfriends and stuff. Because I know, obviously, the whole sex release, I know how it is. But the problem here is that because of that one particular part of the rape law, which states that if you promise to marry her, or if you even gave a word saying that you will marry her, and if you had sex in the relationship, legally, that's rape in India, even if that was consensual sex. So what a lot of women do is that they blackmail the men saying that, listen, I'm going to file a case against you stating that you raped me. And the funny part is they'll say that, okay, this woman was raped for 5 years, and they went to different places together. They visited fucking Kuala Lumpur and US together, and he raped me there.
That's insane.
Yeah,
absolutely
I know. Tell me
insane.
about it. So it comes under the pretext of marriage, and when that happens, the man usually bows down to the stigma. The stigma attached to rape here is extremely high. And because of that, the men just bow down and give up, and they say, "Okay, fine, I'll marry you."
I mean, I remember there was a case. I think it was it was in August last year, where a man was given a 10-year jail sentence. I think it was something outrageous with without parole. It was such an outrageous sentence. Again, on one of these charges that he had raped this woman over a period of time, where they essentially were in a relationship. They were dating, and yeah, he got a 10-year stretch because
that's this particular part of the rape law.
Wow. I'm genuinely lost for words. Honestly, it's absolutely incredible. And
that's one of the reasons I'm actually saying that forget girls itself, forget the marriage. I mean, it's not just about marriage. I mean, abroad you can. I mean, I was in Australia for 5 years, and common law marriage comes into place only after you've stayed together for 2 years. Till then, nothing comes into play.
for
Here,
sure.
all you have to do is basically say, "I'm going to marry you," and that's it. That's all that is required.
But I'm assuming that that there are guys who don't even say that. The woman will just say, well, he showed up and fucked, and he promised to marry, but now he's not marrying. So
Yeah,
basically, sticking your dick in a woman opens one up to yeah, for all intents and purposes. Once you pop that cherry, hey, that's a potential legal case waiting down the line there.
Yeah, that is potentially the case. It kind of screws you over all the way through. You have no recourse, even if it was found out this was false. The women don't get any sort of punishment. So it's basically trial and error. You know what? If this doesn't work, you know what? I'll try something else.
Wow. Well, that's and again, this is something that I always find particularly interesting about these situations. That India has gotten here without decades of feminism. There is for sure something in the human psyche. Feminism may come along now, or it may have been in India, latching on to an existing gynocentrism, but
Yep.
Feminism certainly did not create this legal environment. I mean, in '83, when the 498A law was passed, there certainly, I'm guessing, wasn't a
No,
feminist movement.
feminism actually popped up into India in the 1970s.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, but the constitution was actually put up before that.
I see. Of course.
But
Okay.
the constitution has an article which you can actually have affirmative action for women. So
Okay.
yes, India was gynocentric before feminism came into play.
For
But
sure.
feminism basically it's just took it up a notch.
Absolutely. It takes an already lopsided arrangement against men and simply makes it completely intolerable.
Yep.
That's what feminism tends to do. It takes something fucked up that a man should avoid and then turns it into something murderous, for the man.
Yeah, it's basically suicide right now. And I forgot to tell you about another part of the rape law as well, which is kind of fucked up. Two consenting minors, as in between under 18, under the age of 18, if they've had sex, it's legally the boy has actually raped the woman or the girl. And there have been a lot of cases where boys have had to. The thing is, since they were minors, they were given maybe 2 years punishment or 3 years punishment with some community service. But recently, the Juvenile Justice Act was passed, which states that if that particular act was done, with intent to do it,
Okay.
that they can be tried as an adult.
So it wasn't that they were both naked and she landed on his dick. It was they actually intended to fuck, kind of thing.
Yeah. Now, even in the case, I actually read about a case. This was, I think, 3 years back or 4 years back, which was that the girl actually asked the guy to go with her. They eloped.
Okay.
The girl was the one who forced the guy to go with her, and they stayed in a hotel, and they got caught by the cops, and the parents filed the case. And the girl stated in court as well that it was my idea. I'm the one who told him to do this. And the court stated that you're not of the correct age to actually give consent or say any of these things. And they basically convicted the guy.
Well, we have a similar situation in the UK where two individuals will engage in a sex act that they'll be both drunk, as an example, and she can't give consent while he's drunk, but he can.
That's here as well. It's present here as well.
I
think that's present everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I guess thankfully in some parts of the world that they haven't quite gotten around to that level of madness. And again, I do agree with what Karen Strawn said in one of her recent videos. It's not just men who use alcohol to go and have sex. So the way men tend to use alcohol to go and have sex is not to hand alcohol to the woman, but they will drink a lot of alcohol to basically give themselves some courage to be able to to approach a woman. That's
basically give yourself some balls.
Exactly. And women tend to do the same thing. So when they want to have sex, they'll drink a lot of alcohol to get over their inhibitions because she's horny, she wants to fuck, but she just feels a little bit intimidated, so she'll drink a lot. And this seems to be how humans tend to respond to to the sex act, and to criminalize the man is really beyond me. And I guess maybe it's just my thing in my interaction with women who are drunk. I mean, and like most men, I'm assuming, I don't enjoy having sex with a drunk woman. I don't enjoy having sex while drunk. I'd rather I'd rather have the person sober so I can get into the fucking thing. But
drunk is a pain. You've got to actually, you're doing two people's work.
Exactly. You're pumping away at the girl for 45 minutes. You can't come because you've had a bottle and a half of whiskey by that point. it's not enjoyable by that point. You know, it's
I know the most annoying part is if she's actually drunk, you have to support her as well. I mean, I actually gave up once. I'm like, fuck this, I'm going to sleep.
Oh, you know, it's when I think back at some of the situations I've had with women when I was younger, you know, before these laws, you know, came in, that you basically go out, you meet a girl, you're both completely, you know, off your head on alcohol or just whatever substance, and that night you can't do anything anyway. You know, you're both fucked, and then you wake up the next morning, and then like you're so hungover that, you know, it's. This I've always seen as just a regular part of growing up, and
it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're scared. Sometimes you're scared. You want to lower your inhibitions. You get some alcohol, or you smoke some weed. It depends on the person.
Absolutely. But you know, I guess since going my own way, and I don't know how this has affected you as well. Now I don't value the sex act in the same way, and I guess what I mean by that is this: when I was younger, you know, having sex was just everything. You know, it was great, and I had to have, you know, I had to have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
But now being able to look back at, you know, sexual experiences, it's just like you never remember it. You know, who cares? You know, it's like, you know, I kind of made that example to you before we started the call. It's, you know, that beautiful steak you had 7 years ago. You know, the thing's now in the toilet. You know, who cares? You know, it was a nice steak, and it was a nice bottle of wine with it, and that's the way I see sex now. Yeah, you know, hey, if she's up for it and it's not going to cost me too much in terms of effort, yeah, fuck it, why not? But otherwise, I won't go out of my way to do it. Has going your own way affected you in any? Do you kind of?
Yes, it has actually, because before, when I had sex, I used to always think of it. There was an emotional attachment as well. It was not just purely physical. I had very few one-night stands, to be honest, because I need a certain level of emotional attachment to have sex.
Okay.
And the one-night stands I've had, so basically crap. One, because the girl was fucking drunk, and second part was there was absolutely no connection.
For sure.
And I feel that now it's like, you know what? It's just about the physical part of it. The emotional connection doesn't matter. At least because the emotional connection basically fucks us over.
For sure, absolutely. That's what turns what should otherwise be an enjoyable, you know, sex act into years of child support and alimony. It's when emotions, you know, get confused with you know, just a fuck, basically.
Oh yeah. There's another law here as well, which actually states, it's actually part of the Section 112. It's not in the IPC, but it's the Indian Evidence Act, which states that if a child is born during the marriage, it doesn't matter whose child it is, the husband is legally responsible for it.
Well, that's basically a writ for her to go and cuckold the man. That's insane.
Yeah, and the thing is, it actually states that it's conclusive proof. That's what it states in the Evidence Act, Section 112, I believe. And what it means by conclusive proof, when you link into Section 4, what happens is conclusive proof means that you cannot have any evidence to oppose it. So even if you bring in DNA evidence proving that that's not your child, you can get a divorce on the basis of adultery, but you cannot actually escape the legal contract or the legal obligation to support the child.
Wow. I mean, what was the kind of social atmosphere when the Constitution was being written that such a blatantly unfair and lopsided law can be put in place? You know, what was the atmosphere like in India when the Constitution was being put in place?
Well, the thing is, the IPC actually came up before even the Constitution was there. It was, I think, it was introduced during the British rule. I think in 1893, I believe. I'm not entirely sure about it, but it's somewhere in the 1800s. And the Constitution was actually built up after that.
Oh, I see. So the Indian Penal Code came first, and then the Constitution simply ratified a lot of the provisions already available on the books in the Indian Penal Code.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. That's I've actually never seen that before. it's usually the Constitution comes first, and that invalidates a load of existing laws if the country, let's say, doesn't have a written constitution.
Yeah, but the
And then
problem
the
was
penal.
that
Okay.
since we were under British rule, it was actually taken under the British Constitution.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
So all the
Wow.
laws that were made at the IPC, technically, like even we've still got laws which, for example, this section 112 was actually it came up was passed in, I think, in the 1890s or 1903 or 1905 or something like. I don't remember the exact date, but it's been around for more than a century.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we got independence only in 1947.
I mean, would you care to kind of, guess, or, do you have any estimates on how many men are being caught up in these 498A laws, in these, IPC, cuckoldry laws for all intents and purposes, and these kind of sham rape kind of cases? Are we talking about a couple of thousand guys a year, 20, 30,000 guys, 100,000 guys?
Well, 498A, on average in the last 6 years, actually, let's just take the last 6 years or the last 7 years, there were over 600,000 cases of 498A.
Wow.
And in 2014, there were 125,000, I think, somewhere in 120s. Those were the cases filed. And the arrests were 281,000.
Oh. Wow. Oh, so 281,000 for the false rape kind of cases.
No, the 498A case.
Okay, okay.
So and for rape, it's on average is basically staying in the 30,000s
wow.
every year. And even in 2000, there was I think the Women's Commission Delhi came out and stated that between the months of April 2013 and July 2014, there were over 2,500 cases filed, out of which 53% were outright false. And this is rape charges.
Wow. So 53% were just so on the face of it false, where she'll say, hey, he raped me, and it turns out like the guy was in like another city that day or something, that it's just a clear case of just absolute falsehood.
Yeah, there's some of them, yeah, it might be like that, but I don't know exactly the detail of it. But from what I read in that article, it stated that some of them just stated that they filed the case because of vengeance. That's basically it. Vengeance, blackmail, extortion.
Well, hopefully the men in India will really take heart to the to the message you're putting out on your channel, MGTOW Indian, and really just refrain from relationships, refrain from sexual activity, and absolutely at a minimum refrain from marriage. If, for example, a man seeks to, I guess, have children, marriage is simply no longer a good vehicle to even have that, simply because, hey, if she, has a boyfriend on the side and she gets pregnant from that boyfriend, then you're legally responsible for, child support towards that child.
Yeah,
so
you are.
For sure. No, that's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, the feminists are actually trying to pass another one as well. They're trying to get into the fact that if you're in a live-in relationship, in all purposes, it should be considered as a marriage. And so in the case of divorce, you have to actually give an alimony.
Wow.
Or when you break up, not a divorce, when you break up, you will have to maintain it. They're trying to pass it. I'm not sure if it will go through. I'm guessing it will with the power these people have.
And what I guess I'd love to add here is this. This is why I mistrust traditionalist women so much. You see, because feminists are, actively trying to pass laws which harm men. Traditionalist women will see that, they'll say absolutely nothing. They won't say, hey, hold on, these are our brothers and our fathers and our, and our male friends, don't do this. This is going to damage gender relations. The only time traditionalists will then step in is when men have been so badly hurt, and it's just a case of, well, and men are then saying, fuck you, like, we're not going to get married, like, we don't want
Yeah.
anything to do with you guys. Then it's then they'll then start saying, oh, not all women are like that. Men and women have to work together to defeat feminism, and now's not the time to give up on marriage. And good women are out there, but of course, when men are suffering unashamedly, as in these situations, they say absolutely nothing. As long as women are getting every single benefit, as long as women are having, laws extended to them, which provide them essentially just a writ for just the worst forms of abuse and behavior, traditionalist women say nothing. And again, this is just, at least in my mind, further evidence that traditionalist women don't want the best interests of men. They only complain when there aren't enough men to keep on providing them, a lifetime of leisure and sustenance. So when, when like a traditionalist type woman is maybe 30 and she can't find a guy, that's when she'll get onto the internet and hold up a sign, I don't support feminism, but she did nothing.
I've always actually had this feeling in my mind, if you want to pass a law and you just want to, push it across, you go talk to women and say that, okay, this law is going to protect you, but at the expense of every single male that you know.
Yeah.
And she'll probably say, yeah, fine, you know what, pass the law.
Absolutely.
You say the same to a man. You say that, okay, you know what, this law is going to protect your sister, your mother, your wife, or your girlfriend, but at the expense of your life. He'd be like, yeah, pass the law.
Yeah, men are like that. Men are like that.
But that's what's happening.
Well, men don't tend to have an instinct for self-preservation, and when when they show it, I'll give you an example. So, when I was married to my ex-wife, the one thing I didn't have was a desire for self-preservation. I worked myself like a dog for her benefit, and pretty much just gave her everything she said she wanted. Now we're since divorced, and I've gone my own way. In my interactions with her, like, for example, every once in a while she'll want me to do something, and she'll say, "Oh, it's for your daughter," and I'll just say, like, "Listen, bitch, fuck you." Like I prioritize my own well-being. So that whole, do it for your daughter, that really doesn't work with me. So
that's just a hostage. I mean,
exactly,
hostage.
Exactly, and I clearly say that to her and just say that doesn't work. And because you've used that tactic, I will now do this to make sure that you get it into your head that I really just don't respond to that any longer. But the thing for her is that she is completely shocked when she comes across a man who simply prioritizes his own well-being. For example, if she'll say, well, I need you to get here by this time to pick up our daughter, and I'll just say, like, that's not going to happen because I'm in the gym from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'll get there at 10:30 in the morning. And she'll say, well, but she needs to do this. And I'll just say, look, my workouts come first. Everything else is second. And women don't come across that very often. And maybe that's something we can encourage men to do. Just prioritize your own well-being.
Again, I think that is actually one of our innate biological features.
Absolutely.
We just don't prioritize ourselves. And if you look at evolution, I mean, the men who prioritize themselves wouldn't have passed their genes on.
Absolutely. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I'm so completely, selfish about my time, my holidays, my own space now, that if I already didn't have a child, I don't think any woman would, hey, not that I would ever want a child again. So I do agree with you. It's a survival disadvantage for a man to prioritize his own well-being. And maybe it's because I'm an atheist, I just kind of see things in this way that, look, after I'm gone, I simply lose consciousness. Whether I have other half copies of me running around in the world doing God knows what, it really doesn't matter to me at that point. I'm gone. It's so I literally only have this one life to live, and I'm just going to make the most of it.
Just because of Indian doesn't mean I'm actually religious. I'm an atheist as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, I believe the same thing. You're dead, man. Fuck the rest.
Exactly. Well, since I guess I don't know if you've had this as well, but since kind of going my own way, not wanting to, I don't want to have another child. I already have one. Even my attitude towards work and savings have completely changed. When I first got into the working world, and I first started working, I would work hard and I would save meticulous, every single month a certain amount of money has to be put aside because, one day I was going to start a family and I wanted to do X, Y, Z. Nowadays, I just think, you know what, I've made all this cash. Let me just find like, a nice place to holiday. Let me find a nice bottle of wine. It's your priorities change because you realize, well, I'm not going to be leaving anything behind anyway. Like, and there's no wife who's going to just steal all of it. So you can invest in your own benefit and your own enjoyment of life.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will actually understand that part because, I mean, all throughout history, even if you look at the current system, a man is actually valued based on what he does for someone else,
For
never
sure.
what he does for himself. A woman is valued easily on what she does for herself.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you know what the worst part for me is? Because I'm actually the only child. And so, the parents are like, who's going to pass on the family line and
Wow.
all that bullshit.
Oh man.
So that's an added pressure because I'm the only one.
Oh man, you must be getting a lot of pressure.
Oh, you have no clue, right? You have no
Whoa.
clue. It's a
Whoa.
killer because, like, I told you I went for the trip. I actually stayed at a family friend's place for the first night.
Okay.
And basically, I had 3 hours of lecture based on marriage. It was basically me and him arguing about marriage and the whole principles behind it. And he just doesn't get it. I mean, he's happy. He's married. This guy is married. He's happy to work his ass off, risk his health for his wife and his kids. His kids, I agree. Yes, you should do it. But for your wife, and he doesn't get the fact that he just can't understand the fact that I'm actually I want to look after myself. He's like, that's selfish. I'm like, what's wrong with being selfish? What's wrong with being selfish?
Exactly.
And then he has no answer to that. I mean, he's like, that's not right. I'm like, why is it not right? You're just saying that it's not right. I'm selfish. You're just attacking me. You're not telling me why.
Exactly. Well, they never have a why. It's they've been passed a certain set of values and they've never questioned the relevance of these values for their own well-being.
Yep.
In the context of the environment that we live in. I genuinely think, hey, look, maybe 300-400 years ago, or maybe even up to about 70 years ago, having children was probably a very, very smart thing to do, just simply because if at the age of 60 one's health went,
Yep.
children then, of course, the ability to then have the children look after the person, that made a lot of sense. In this day and age where we have sanitary water, where people are living longer, we have far better medical care, where individuals can save for retirement and save far better. There are various investment opportunities. Having children as a kind of insurance policy against sickness and inability to work into one's old age, it simply isn't a sound approach. In fact, it's probably even detrimental these days. Well,
It's not feasible anymore at this day and age.
absolutely.
They throw that argument at me as well. They're like, who'll look at you when you're older? I'm like, hello, if I don't have a wife or a child, I'll have enough money to actually look after myself, to hire a
Exactly.
home nurse or go to an old age home. I'll have enough money to look after myself because I'll be saving for my retirement.
Exactly. And also, I don't know in what world these people are living in, but children and especially women, but also children can't be relied on for that these days. If yes, for sure, but potentially the child may actually stick around and look after the person, but there's no guarantee of that. They may just say like, "Listen, mom, listen, dad, fuck you." Like, I'm going here, and I don't even blame them. It's, hey, it is what it is.
In
But
India, there's actually a legal obligation. You can
oh,
actually
really?
sue
Okay.
your son. Yeah, you can sue but you can sue only your son. You can't sue your daughter though. So your son has to maintain you legally. So that's not a
Wow.
choice. It's a legal obligation. But when it
Wow.
comes to the daughter, no fucking way. Uh,
Wow.
yeah.
Oh man, it's a crazy system. It's actually one of the most kind of gynocentric legal systems I've ever come across.
It
You
is
know, it's
like
so lopsided.
even when it comes to child support, a son is entitled to child support till he turns 18. Uh, a girl, however, she's entitled to child support until she gets working or if she wants to get married or whatever the fuck it is. Basically, if she doesn't want to work and she doesn't want to get married, then you have to, the father has to look after her for life.
Whoa, whoa. And do you get guys who just simply say, "Look, I'm not going to do that. Like, I don't care what the laws are. I'm going to move to another state or another country, perhaps, and just simply not follow this." Or is that not done? Is that
Nah, in India, I don't think too many people actually do it because, again, the whole traditional system is still kind of intact.
okay?
I think this will possibly be the last generation where this traditional system will be intact. I think from the next generation onwards, it's just going to be in tatters.
Okay.
Uh,
What do you think will replace it?
I have no fucking clue.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think this particular law will ever get deleted.
Okay.
It only burdens the son, and nobody cares about anything that burdens a man.
Hmm.
So I don't think this particular law will ever be deleted. It's the same in China as well. I mean, the parents can sue the son for not looking after them.
For sure. I do know in China that the entire obligation to support the parents is on the son.
Yep,
You
yep.
know, and it's a huge responsibility.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly the same thing here. There's no difference.
For sure. I guess
And
this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
and then they ask us, why do they actually prefer sons? Well, because fucking you can sue your son when they're not looking after you. But if you have a
Absolutely.
daughter, you have to look after her for your entire life.
Absolutely. Well, I guess it's the same in China. The son has to look after
Yep.
the parents, and because of the one-child policy over there, that one boy, if has to then look after two people, that's a huge strain. So, but of course, for the parents, it's so necessary. So they absolutely they prioritize having sons over there, and
Yeah. And obviously, he has the added responsibility of looking after the wife and kids as well. So basically, he'll be looking after what? 4 people.
exactly just 4 mouths to feed. Honestly, I'll just buy a plane ticket and just never come back.
Well, isn't it a wonder? I mean, why does anybody really have to wonder why men suicide at a
For
high rate?
sure, for sure. Well, the pressure and the stress is absolutely incredible. And again, I know in the community, or if MGTOW is a community, but within the thought stream that is MGTOW, we spend a lot of our time complaining about things, and quite rightly so. There are lots and lots of things to complain about. That the world is
Yep.
not fair for men, but as a MGTOW guy, you have it better than most other guys out there.
I agree. I completely agree. I think we've actually made the right choice in that department.
Oh, absolutely. Just the ability to say, look, as bad as life can be, I'm not going to compound that with having to essentially support, 3 or 4 people. And one of these individuals being my wife can then just kind of point me out and just send me to jail. The ability to just have a little bit more peace of mind, just to have less stress. This is a remarkable thing, and something that we ought to be very, very grateful for that we've come across this thought stream, and we're able to just peacefully go our own way. So the way you kind of see it, MGTOW Indian, is that within the next generation, the current kind of social contract is going to break down, and the guys over there won't have such an obligation to kind of marry and settle down.
Yeah, I don't think so because even now at this present time, you can actually see a lot of men complaining, a lot of men saying that what the hell is the use of getting married if this is what it is. But these are these men who have been hit with it already once,
Okay.
who've gone through it just like you have, but with the 498A in jail and trial and all that shit. Basically, they've gone through it and they're like, no. And then there are a few guys, like I've got a few subscribers as well, who are young blokes, and they've already saying that, you know what, I'm not gonna fucking get married. No way in hell. It again depends on how bad the pressure is going to be from their folks.
Mm.
And I think yes, by the next, if the laws keep getting passed the way it is or it has been for the last few years, with the strength of feminism, I think that we're going to have. It's going to be similar to the U.S., where the 70% of people between 20 and 35 are not married. I think we're going to get there sooner or later.
For sure, for sure. I'm guessing that can only be a positive thing for the society, because these men won't then have their lives destroyed, through family courts and false rape charges and 498A charges. So it can only be a net positive at the very least for the men over there.
Yeah. Well, actually, I forgot to tell you about one other thing as well. I spoke to a girl, a colleague of mine who actually went through a divorce. She went through a mutual divorce.
Okay.
So when she went to the lawyer first time, the lawyer actually gave her a list. So it's like, when you go to a restaurant, you get a menu.
Okay.
Something like that. And in that list are all the laws you can actually file against your husband and the parents and the brothers and the sisters. And it's like, which one do you want to file?
Whoa. Whoa.
That's how it was. I asked her about it and she was like, yeah, that's how it is. And she actually gave me a little more detail. She could have filed the rape case against the brother and the father. She would have filed a molestation charge, like abetment of rape against the mother, then kidnapping, dowry harassment, unnatural sex, which is section 377, which can actually get you life imprisonment.
What is classed as unnatural? Like, holding her nose while trying to get her to swallow is that kind of thing?
So basically, India has this fucked up part of a law which was actually left by the British, and we still haven't deleted that law. It actually states oral sex is illegal in India.
Whoa.
Okay, anal sex is illegal in India, even voluntary.
Okay, hell.
Yeah, so she can actually complain against unnatural sex as well, which they would have done. Oral sex is obviously a part of sex now. It's just
absolutely. Well, that's the thing, that women are quick to hand out oral sex because, let's say if they're into the guy, she'll give him a blowjob because she then wants to delay getting penetrated. It's so she can still say she's a virgin or whatever. It's women. Honestly, all of the women I've been with are the ones who push to give head. Like, it's I don't know if you've kind of seen that dynamic. You don't have to kind of persuade them to do it, but that's the first thing they just tend to do.
Yeah, that's true. But I've never had a problem with them stopping there, though.
For sure. For sure. But it's incredible. So she would have been able to just, on a whim, just file all of these charges. I mean, thankfully she didn't.
Yeah, she did. She got a mutual divorce. It just passed like last month, and she's happily working. She's not taking alimony. She's a working woman, so she's just, I don't know. I guess there are a few women who don't misuse the laws.
Why do you think she did that and she didn't resort for the nuclear option?
She just said that it didn't feel right. I mean, I think she had a conscience, to be honest.
Okay.
That's why I keep saying that, there might be actually some people who still, maybe, they've got a little bit of conscience, like Karen Strawn itself. I mean, I think she's actually got a bit of conscience. I don't know about Alison and Hannah. Actually heard a lot of them. But I think Karen Strawn, I think she's got a conscience. I think she stated that she didn't take child support from her husband or alimony.
I think that is the case. I mean, knowing, for example, my ex-wife, I had to pay her an insane amount every month when we initially kind of broke up, and I was really, really lucky that she essentially just moved in with a new partner, which was fantastic for me, because then then I, like the alimony part, I just simply didn't have to pay any longer. It was wonderful.
But there's another thing here as well. A lot of women opt for one-time alimony.
So
one-time payment.
They get a cash hit up front, and I'm guessing it's tax-free as well.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure if it's tax free. I'm not 100% sure about that. It might as well be. I don't know. But yeah, they get the payment, and then the one-time payment. Once that's done, they're like, you know what? Now I can go get married. Doesn't matter, does it?
Wow. So they're essentially professional divorces.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow. I would wholeheartedly implore any man in India. Yeah, honestly, it's getting into a relationship in that kind of climate is a level of suicide. Yeah, it's wow.
I mean, yeah, like a lot of you guys still say, go fuck around and shit like that. I've seen a few guys saying that, even other MGTOWs, go fuck around, have your fun. But I can't actually, I don't have the liberty to do that. And I can't even tell people to do that in India because it is a dangerous climate.
Yeah,
it doesn't even have to be right.
It's very dangerous. Yeah, absolutely. I think what's happened in the West is that guys over here have been placated with a bit of pussy every once in a while. So however bad things are, as long as like a guy can go out and have a bit of sex, it seems to kind of make things better. And there's just there's something in the male mind, once he has a bit of sex, everything just feels a little bit better, no matter how bad the economy is or whatever.
Yeah.
But I guess in India, guys don't even have that option. So what's the outlet then? Is it just sports games? So I don't know.
Well, I actually got a PS4, so that's me.
Nice.
That's
Nice.
my outlet. And porn, of course. What else?
Well, exactly. Thankfully, porn is ubiquitous now. That's what I'm extremely pleased for.
I mean, there were plans last year to ban porn in India. I don't know. Luckily, it didn't go through. But
it's like I used to live in the Philippines, so I would there was a kind of meditation retreat that I used to go to up in Chiang Mai. So I would fly across to Thailand, and I always found this really, really interesting that in Thailand, it's so many, it's like go-go bars on like every street corner in Bangkok and stuff, and just girls doing just the most insane things in these live sex shows. But pornography is it's banned, like so like so you can literally go down the street to watch a girl shooting a ping pong out of her pussy and another guy batting it back in, like just some insane shit. And then if you try to like access like some girl on girl action on like Spankwire or YouPorn, like the Federal Ministry of Thailand, by the order of His Majesty, like this web page comes up and just like shuts it down, and like you get this message that's immoral. It's like, what the fuck? Like, am I in the Twilight Zone here?
You got it on your fucking street. You have it on
Yeah.
I need to get my ass out of India, man. I need to get back to Oz, because at least prostitution is legal in Oz.
For sure. Well, that's the thing in Thailand, that on your screen, on my laptop, like in the hotel or in the place I'm staying at, that your screen is saying that this is immoral, you can't do this, and you look out your window, and there are prostitutes of both sexes walking up and down the street.
I have no idea what the logic is behind that. I mean, that just seems redundant.
Exactly. I could never ever figure it out. It just seemed so weird to me. I was like, okay.
That's some crazy shit. It's not crazy, it's fucking dumb.
So, MGTOW Indian, thank you very, very much. It's been a real pleasure to have you here. And everyone, I do hope you'll go and subscribe to MGTOW Indian's channel. He runs a really, really nice channel. Please do help spread the word about, his content. And yeah.